from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning, Uganda. Welcome yet to the second day of the week. Today being Tuesday, 27th. The month is June. The year is 2023. My name is Philomena Mastiko. Together here with Robert Kirabo, Nyonyintono, to take you through for your greatest part of the morning. Now, when we talk about great, definitely there are certain things I would want to put across the table, Robert. In not so long from now, we could be seeing some good and positive changes, especially when it comes to Uganda's judicial system, because the judiciary, together with the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, is looking at employing different techniques when it comes to litigation, the alternative dispute resolutions. Now, here you're looking at involving third parties to come and ensure that two disagreeing parties come to an argument, okay, if the normal litigation doesn't work. And they believe that this could actually be one way we can have money back into the system. Now, what money? According to judiciary, we have about 8 trillion that is being held up in the commercial court. Now, through ADR, or alternative dispute resolutions, they believe that money could be put back into the system after two parties have agreed through a third party, and of course settling on a certain level of payment. That money could be released from the commercial court back into circulation. And as far as I know, this is a field that has not yet been fully tapped into by the Ugandan judiciary system. But now in 2023, when they're talking about all these other techniques that are under alternative dispute resolutions, they do believe that maybe away from the normal, we need to, shift away from this whole paradigm of the normal litigation. We start looking into ADR. And good for us, this is just not only for the judiciary. You could be looking at the banking system, you could be looking at lawyers, you could be looking at very many other things that could be using ADR or mediation. So I think this is something Ugandans need to start interesting themselves in. And I'm very happy that we're looking at incorporating it into our judiciary system, but also having it into our business system, where we know that money could get back into the circulation. We are crying about money is not in the circulation. So I think I'm happy about this. At least we're starting to see Ugandans expanding their thinking and also looking at other alternatives to make things slightly better away from court. I don't know how you feel about this, Robert.
Well, a lovely morning to you, Philo. And of course our viewers, thank you so much for waking up with us. It is really very interesting hearing that alternative ways of resolving disputes, and you don't have to go necessarily everything rushing to court, everything spending and all that, is something we should go to. By the way, I think, Philo, there's just a problem of this generation, that even when sometimes you can handle things without going to the judicial process, we tend to object that. Have you seen Ugandans how maybe one can scratch the other's car and they park in the road, there's so much jam, yet an indicator of 15,000 has been knocked off. Well, as it is very simple for these two people to come out and say, well, this is how much this costs, or let me have your driving license, you drive ahead, I follow you, or something. You go to your garage, but they wait, let the policeman come. Something small. There are cases that are supposed to be settled by LCs. Someone says,
yes,
we go to police, police, reaching police, sometimes, but that's why they end up complaining. You took this person to police, after 48 hours, they can get police bond, and then they're out. Then even when you take them to court, some cases are bailable, as long as there are sureties, the person is out. So now there's a friend of mine I laughed at.
Yes.
He owes someone money and then went ahead as arresting, taking him to prison. Then he was told that these datas For them, every day they spend in a government prison, you pay 3,000 shillings. So if I owe you 6 million, and then the worst comes to the worst and I'm taken to prison, you feed me. 3,000 shillings every day. Because it is all about recovering your money.
Yeah.
And I told him, brother, but I think these are some things you would have settled even before getting this far.
And then, you know, with ADR, it's very flexible and also it doesn't consume a lot of time. Plus, one more important thing is that I think the results that come out of the mediation and everything that has to do with it may be satisfactory to both parties, because I do believe that both parties have a say, especially when it comes to the issue at hand, and eventually when the results come out or when they come to a certain agreement, all parties are happy. They're happy away from court. The third party will try to be very objective and understand it from one person's different perspective. So I do believe they have more power over the issue as opposed to throwing the cases in court. So maybe it's something we really need to look into. It would do us some good.
Definitely. But away from that, you know, we have TikTok now. It's been around, but it's one of the apps that I want to believe has been misused by Ugandans. This is my opinion.
Okay.
If you look at Uganda youth or youths, that's now including also those in the ghettos, and you want to analyze or you do a research about usage of this app called TikTok, most of them are abusing it. Now, yesterday, a certain man from Buyikwe district, known as Kalenzi Bristol, was charged with promoting and glorifying terrorism. Remember that TikToker?
Yes.
Who first came out when they shot famous known blogger Isma Olex. And he said, you know, he survived that time. Now, after the Kasese, this man comes out and still says, you know, and they thought it is business as usual. Now he was nabbed by police, arrested, and I guarantee you, before the magistrate, if proved guilty, he may not survive.
But everybody want to understand what exactly gives people the audacity to come out and make allegations like that. Moreover, using social media platforms like that, social media platforms that are easily accessible to anyone and everybody. You're using it to spread lies. You're using it to spread propaganda. You're using it for hate speech. You're using it to sensationalize issues. What gives Ugandans this audacity? I need to understand the thought process of a man who would come out and go to any social media platform now like that gentleman and feel...
please, not a gentleman. Okay, gentlemen are us.
Well, that man.
Whatever.
Yes, that man. What I would really want to get into his thought process. Do you think people are actually okay mentally? Because what is the problem? I have failed to understand. Well,
I may not have the exact answer, but one, you know, Amaro. Or would I say there is much of rural urban excitement, but now this is rural internet or excitement. These things have not been with us here. So some people, there is so much excitement. Two, I'll put it on government. You know, when certain things go wrong and nothing is done, it gives a leeway for others to commit these offenses.
Yes.
For example, so many people have been misusing TikTok, attacking others, including some who would be, because there is some kind of whatever advisor who misuses it, abuses everybody.
Yes.
And you know, nothing has been happening or being done to them. For example, if the first time that gentleman came out with that video where I am the one who shot Isma Olex, if government had acted, then police, we wouldn't have a video on Kasese. But you see, when there is so much wrong happening and the authorities seem to be doing nothing, it opens gaps for others. Look at some of the music we're having today. And we have a body, you know. Some videos are very obscene. But it's becoming normal. When one artist began singing stupid things, I'm sorry to use that word, and nothing was done.
They let it go, they let it pass.
Now you have all sorts of songs. They called me, yeah, there is, and more and worse is coming. So, because there's nothing done, that is why we saw that it became very easy, very simple for any other person. That is why in law we have what they call precedent. That someone can quote a similar case, and then a judge can depend on a previous case to give a judgment. But when things happen that way,
Well, Robert, while we are still at it, yesterday National Drug Authority enforcement officers, together with police, arrested a man called David Sali. Now, the reason they arrested this man, he's been lying to the public, telling them that he has the capability of curing HIV/AIDS using an onion concoction. And I am starting to question our public, community or society members, because now I may not necessarily blame the people who are doing it, the victims. Well, they already have their own issues to deal with. But also as the public, there is need for us to be more aware, because there is no way a herbalist is going to come to you, Robert, and tell you, you know what, give me your money. I'm going to be able to heal you. You are HIV, positive. I will heal you. I shall heal you with my onion concoction. I can heal all these other diseases that we know for a very long time as a country we have struggled, and we're still trying to make sure we get cures. So there is need for us to be more aware. We don't need to be very gullible, and I know sometimes desperate means can call for desperate measures.
Oh, in this country, yes. People have ever eaten soil in Zemba. I think there's a lady called
I don't know what we're going to do. I really don't know what we're going to do.
If you took it, then you would get good of HIV/AIDS. So she made a lot of money in her days. People were going there and buying and eating this soil.
Is it because we're desperate? Is it because we are very gullible that we can easily fall for anything that is, shot towards us as a solution to some of the situations we're going through? What do you think? Is it the mindset?
One, mindset is very important, because I've seen very educated people. I've ever seen a doctor, someone with a PhD, enter a shrine. Not once, not twice, very exposed in a very highly positioned government position, and this person goes to a witch doctor, a shrine, to consult spirits and gods. So there's that mentality. But also you must understand that levels of literacy are still high. In Uganda, feel it because of exposure and education, you may not be gullible to some of these things. But those two, low levels of education, coupled with actually those beliefs in us. But something also strange, Philo.
Yes.
On the 25th of October last year, Salama School for the Blind caught fire. And what happened is we lost about 11 girls in this dormitory that had 17
Very
children.
sad.
Now,
yes.
There was a bottle believed to have a chemical and a matchbox. Now, police picked this bottle and they suspect it was arson. So they went ahead and took samples from male staff of the school, including the herdsman, who was a key suspect. Now, 8 months, now police comes out and says that none of the fingerprints of the people they took matched the sample. Then also they went for DNA, and none of the DNA matches with actually the samples they have to connect someone to the scene of crime.
Yes.
Now, what does that mean? It means they have hit a dead end. They have to restart investigations. So those who are waiting to know who did this, 8 months down, police have to go back. Maybe now take samples of female staff that were there.
My only worry is that now that we have had these results of the investigations, now that we have to restart,
yes,
I hope they can still come through and give us a response. They respond to it, because giving us these results, well, it's a little bit coming, knowing that we don't have any culprits for now. But if they go back into the second set of the investigations, I would really want for them to come out and still tell us, because you know how Ugandan things have worked, Robert. Here we have talked about it over and over and over, how investigations somewhere midway they disappear.
Because I was looking at the Budo, the first arson case of fire to a big magnitude in modern day was Budo Junior, where we saw the girls' dormitory. But till now, police has never come up with a report. No anything satisfactory. They talked about a lot of things. The scene was contaminated. The bodies were burnt. One time I listened to the director of Fire and Rescue Services trying to explain, that is the police, trying to explain why they have not been able. And I'm like, well, now it goes to the people who commit these crimes.
Well, it's a really, really very sad and unfortunate. Of
Judgment
course,
Day is there. On earth, you may never be nabbed. But for us Christians, we believe that there's Judgment Day.
Well, we would really love justice to be served, especially to the people who lost their loved ones, especially the children. And we would want to see these people, the culprits, being put behind bars or, being given punishment. Of course, nothing can take away the grief, but at least knowing that punishment was served, well, it kind of gives you a certain level of satisfaction. So we are hoping and waiting to see what the second investigation will bring out of all of this. Anyway, there is a lot happening in the country, of course, here and away from home in the East African region and looking at the globe generally. For now, we'll take you through some of the story briefs, starting with right here at home.
We'll begin with His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, who has advised the judiciary and its relevant stakeholders in administration of justice to bear in mind that the interest of society while putting in place new mechanisms in the dispensation of justice. Vice President Jessica Alupo communicated this on his behalf during the opening of the first high-level National Alternative Dispute Resolution Summit 2023 in Kampala. Moving on, shock has gripped people of Buunga sub-county in Masaka district after landing on a body of one Slivia Nakibira dumped in the compound. The deceased, Nakibira, aged 30 years, is a resident of Chanjovu village in Buunga sub-county in Masaka district. According to locals, Slivia could have been killed from another place before dumping her in a neighborhood compound. Masaka District Speaker Francis Kimuli, who is a resident in the village, has appealed to police to come up with a comprehensive report on the cause of the current spate of murders in the district. And going to Kasese investigations, police have invited relatives of the identified 11 bodies to pick them for burial. These are among the 44 people who perished in Rubiriha terror attack last week. Police spokesperson Fred Enanga told the media in Naguru that investigations into the school terror attack, where 18 of the initial 22 suspects were granted a police bond. The lately DNA samples from the 17 bodies of the perished people in Rubiriha school attack, 11 have matched with the relatives. Police have invited the relatives to pick the bodies from Bwera Health Center for burial. Securities still have 6 unclaimed bodies, and relatives to the deceased are invited to come for sample collection. And finally, from the local scene, Uganda Railway Corporation has started rehabilitating the Kampala-Namamve railway line by replacing steel sleepers with concrete. The managing director, Uganda Railways Corporation, Stanley Sendegeya, said the corporation wants to improve railway operations and limit vandalism. Operations of Uganda Railways halted at the beginning of April for renovation and upgrading. The exercise involves laying concrete sleepers from Namamve to Kampala station. The corporation's managing director told UBC that 25 million euros has been earmarked in this process.
Well, away from the local stories and into what is happening internationally, Russian President Vladimir Putin has accused the leaders of last weekend's Wagner mutiny of wanting to see Russia choked in blood strife. In a short speech full of vitriol, Mr. Putin vowed to bring the organizers of the revolt to justice. But he called regular Wagner troops patriots who would be allowed to join the army, go to Belarus or return home. He did not directly name Wagner boss Yevgeny Prigozhin, who earlier denied trying to overthrow Mr. Putin's regime. Wagner is a private army of mercenaries that has been fighting alongside the regular Russian army in Ukraine. The short-lived rebellion, which saw Wagner fighters seize a major Russian city before heading north towards Moscow in a column of military vehicles, was a response to government plans to take direct control of Wagner. Prigozhin claimed in an 11-minute-long audio statement published on Telegram on Monday. India's finance minister has derided comments by former US President Barack Obama that Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government should protect the rights of minority Muslims, accusing him of being hypocritical. During Modi's state visit to the United States last week, Obama told media houses of the protection of the Muslim minority in a majority Hindu India would be worth raising in his meeting with US President Joe Biden. Obama said without such protection, there was a strong possibility that India at some point starts falling apart. Indian Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman said she was shocked that Obama made such remarks when Modi was visiting the US, aiming to deepen relations. Back in Africa, more than 10,000 people have registered as refugees in South Sudan after fleeing the conflict in Sudan, the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs has said. While overall 130,000 people have fled into South Sudan since the fighting started in April, most of them were South Sudanese returning home. OCHA said the latest influx continues to compound the dire situation as the arrival numbers are projected to continue to increase as fighting continues. Among those arriving include unaccompanied or separated children, the elderly, persons with disabilities, those with urgent medical needs, single or female-headed households, and pregnant women. Many arrivals have witnessed or were subjected to violence and exploitation such as extortion and looting, including during their journey to South Sudan. In weather and climate, in a new report, UNICEF reported that sufficient resources are not being allocated for the needs of children, despite this being a vital part of climate fund commitments. Other children bear the brunt of the climate crisis. The latest report from UNICEF's Children's Environmental Rights Initiative highlights the lack of meeting commitments on climate funding, pointing out that only 2.4% of key global funds support activities for children. The report stated that over 1 billion children are at extremely high risk from the effects of the climate crisis. The unique physiology, behavioral characteristics, and developmental needs of children, particularly between birth and 5-year-olds, make them vulnerable to impacts such as water and food shortages and physical and psychological trauma associated with the weather, the report partly said. Well, still more stories are coming in, but taking a look at some of our dailies this morning, and starting off with the Daily Monitor. Uganda Revenue Authority raises red flags on digital car plates. Of course, tax collector says rushed implementation will likely paralyze car import, clearing and registration business, causing revenue losses and sparking a public uproar for which it will be blamed, yet capacity of agencies and contractor to roll out the scheme hasn't been tested. Well, if you're seeing the tax body coming out to, express, yes.
You know, if almost every week you're clearing 4,000 cars.
Yes.
4,000 a week. You have capacity because now people are going to give you and you install yourself, like what we have. They have to put, the Nobet has a kit, but they have to put a tracker in the car.
Yes.
So how many cars can, you need to, this is something where you need to have capacity. Otherwise you're going to cause commotion.
We already
Someone
have the
pays
commotion
for their
as
car
it is, yes.
in a bond, or house bond, they want to drive, and they're told maybe it will take you a month or plus to get it because it has to be installed, a tracker and all that. I think it's a rushed move.
It's a rushed move. I think we still need a bit more time to organize ourselves to ensure that we can actually execute this or have it implemented. Moving on, railway works to ease a city transport, of course, talking about rehabilitation and government to train special force to guard Mumbere. Iron sheets, FDC turns the heat on DPP. We know that, of course, there was quite
17 of them, 17 officials.
And I can tell you that Ugandans are sharing the same sentiments with FDC at this point. They feel like, well, why?
But you see,
what's the explanation behind this?
If the DPP lacks sufficient evidence, then she wouldn't waste time to go ahead with that case.
Well, I mean, at this point, we'll start questioning what is sufficient evidence. What exactly is it that they are looking for to deem it as enough and reliable evidence to have these people tried in court? Well, I can tell you that you'll find the full story in the Daily Monitor. DNA analysis confirms 11 student identities. Of course, still in the sad story regarding Kasese attacks. And well-wishers donate 8,000 cattle for Eid al-Adha feast, which we'll be having, is it tomorrow? Tomorrow. Yes. So clearly preparations are already underway.
I need someone to give me a goat wherever you are, please. A good Samaritan. I must slaughter an animal, but I don't have any as per now. So if you can bring me a goat, you can. I'll be very glad and grateful. I
mean, we have a friend Famba here, so we would have to talk to him nicely later on in the show.
Here. They never invite you for Eid.
Well, moving on to some of the big stories that you should be expecting to find in the New Vision. This morning, government tightens entry rules for doctors. Time up for half-baked medical professionals. Well, things are going to become harder by the minute. Well, there is quite some serious laws that are being put against this profession. So government is coming out to really go hard on them. And a fashion galore at Bride and Groom Expo, of course, to see what went down there. Now, police busts more mobile money gangs. In the recent weeks, of course, we have been seeing very many mobile money agents lose their money to some of these mobile money gangs. And we have been seeing all these CCTV videos that have been going viral. Very, very sad. And I think this we need to applaud police for. And in the DNA saga, more men rush to change kids' records. Anyway, speaking of justice, 86-year-old appeals to Museveni over land dispute. And in Kasese attack, 11 victims identified. And finally, looking at meteors, Uganda's gold exports hit 1.7 trillion Uganda shillings in 2 months. Well, grab yourself a copy of the Daily Monitor and the New Vision, yes?
What does that mean?
Well, I wish I could tell you, but we'll find out. We'll definitely find out. We're going for a break. When we return, we'll be having more conversations in the newsreel, so please do ensure you join us, me and Robert. Good morning, Uganda. We'll return shortly after the break.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala.
Some good and positive changes, especially when it comes to Uganda's judicial system, because the judiciary, together with the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, is looking at employing different techniques when it comes to litigation, the alternative dispute resolutions. Now, here you're looking at involving third parties to come and ensure that two disagreeing parties come to an argument, okay, if the normal litigation doesn't work. And they believe that this could actually be one way we can have money back into the system. Now, what money? According to judiciary, we have about 8 trillion that is being held up in the commercial court. Now, through ADR or alternative dispute resolutions, they believe that money could be put back into the system after 2 parties have agreed through a third party and of course settling on a certain level of payment. That money could be released from the commercial court back into circulation. And as far as I know, this is a field that has not yet been fully tapped into by the Ugandan judiciary system. But now in 2023, when they're talking about all these other techniques that are under alternative dispute resolutions, they do believe that maybe away from the normal, we need to, shift away from this whole paradigm of the normal litigation. We start looking into ADR. And good for us. This is just not only for the judiciary. You could be looking at the banking system. You could be looking at lawyers. You could be looking at very many other things that could be using ADR or mediation. So I think this is something Ugandans need to start interesting themselves in. And I'm very happy that we're looking at incorporating it into our judiciary system, but also having it into our business system, where we know that money could get back into the circulation. We are crying about money is not in the circulation. So I think I'm happy about this. At least we're starting to see Ugandans expanding their thinking and also looking at other alternatives to make things slightly better away from court. I don't know how you feel about this, Robert.
Well, a lovely morning to you, Philo. And of course, our viewers, thank you so much for waking up with us. It is really very interesting hearing that alternative ways of resolving disputes, and you don't have to go necessarily everything rushing to court, everything spending and all that is something we should go to. By the way, I think, Philo, there's just a problem of this generation that even when sometimes we can handle things without going to the judicial process, we tend to object to that. Have you seen Ugandans how maybe one can scratch the other's car and they park in the road, there's so much jam, yet an indicator of 15,000 has been knocked off. Well, as it is very simple for these 2 people to come out and say, well, this is how much this costs, or let me have your driving license, you drive ahead, I follow you, or something. You go to your garage, but they wait, let the policeman come. Something small. Their cases are supposed to be settled by LCs. Someone says,
yes,
we go to police, njagala police, reaching police, sometimes that's why they end up complaining. You took this person to police, after 48 hours they can get police bond, and then they're out. Then even when you take them to courts, some cases are bailable as long as there are sureties, the person is out. So now there's a friend of mine I laughed at.
Yes.
He owes someone money and then went ahead as arresting, taking him to prison. Then he was told that these datas, for them, every day they spend in a government prison, you pay 3,000 shillings. So if I owe you 6 million, and then the worst comes to the worst and I'm taken to prison, you feed me 3,000 shillings every day, because it is all about recovering your money.
Yeah.
And I told him, brother, but I think these are some things you would have settled even before getting this far.
And with ADR, it's very flexible and also it doesn't consume a lot of time. Plus, one more important thing is that I think the results that come out of the mediation and everything that has to do with it may be satisfactory to both parties, because I do believe that both parties have a say, especially when it comes to the issue at hand, and eventually when the results come out or when they come to a certain agreement, all parties are happy. They're happy away from court. The third party will try to be very objective and understand it from one person's different perspective. So I do believe they have more power over the issue as opposed to throwing the cases in court. So maybe it's something we really need to look into. It will do us some good.
Definitely. But away from that, we have TikTok now. It's been around, but it's one of the apps that I want to believe has been misused by Ugandans. This is my opinion.
Okay.
If you look at Uganda youth or youths, That's now including also those in the ghettos. And you want to analyze, or you do a research about usage of this app called TikTok. Most of them are abusing it. Now, yesterday, a certain man from Buyikwe district, known as Kalenzi Bristol, was charged with promoting and glorifying terrorism. Remember that TikToker?
Yes.
Who first came out when they shot famous known blogger Isma Olex. And he said, you know, he survived that time. Now, after the Kasese, this man comes out and still says, you know, and they thought it is business as usual. Now he was nabbed by police, arrested, and I guarantee you, before the magistrate, if proved guilty, he may not survive.
But everybody want to understand what exactly gives people the audacity to come out and make allegations like that. Moreover, using social media platforms like that, social media platforms that are easily accessible to anyone and everybody. You're using it to spread lies. You're using it to spread propaganda. You're using it for hate speech. You're using it to censure, you know, 3. My name is Philomena Mastiko with Robert Kirabo Nyonyintono. 5 minutes past 7 a.m. and of course getting into the newsreel right about now. We talk about very many issues, Robert, issues that concern us, whether directly or, you know, through others, but in one way they do. But one issue that we can never tire from talking about is gender-based violence. Now, not so long ago, over the weekend, we had International Women's Day celebrations here in Uganda. And these definitely, there are very many revelations that come to light, especially when we hold or when we celebrate days like this. Now, one of the things or one of the revelations that came to light is that the leaders in the western part of Uganda, especially looking at Kabale, they're really, really worried about the escalating numbers of violence, especially domestic violence. Now, when we talk about domestic violence, usually we are looking at women being the victims mostly. But in this case, and I don't want to say shockingly because this has also been happening, and men are taking on the biggest number of the victims. We are now shifting goalposts. Men are being abused at a very high rate by women in Kabale region. Now, when we talk about, of course, domestic violence, nobody deserves to be violated in their home by their partners, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman. Everybody deserves to be at peace, especially if you are married. And looking at these cases, the numbers going high, they're actually causing a lot of traction from different groups of people, wondering what is happening down there. Why are we seeing men being battered, men being abused by their wives? And I think even before we get into the solution, definitely it would be just right to look into some of the causes. What makes the men susceptible to this kind of violence, even when we know it's very illegal, when we know nobody deserves to be battered? And maybe we could just be starting from there. Maybe we can look at this. What do you think could be the reason as to why we are seeing men being battered? In most cases, we've always looked at it from the other perspective, yes. Now that we are changing goalposts, what's going on?
Well, it's very unfortunate. One would say a bit laughable. But the reality is, and please men don't feel offended, maybe the men in Kabale are more open to speak out. But very many men are experiencing various forms of violence in homes, but they choose not to speak. In my career, I've spent a lot of time working with police, stories in police and all that. And one of the interesting areas in police I go to when I'm doing my stories is the Family and Child Protection Unit of Police. Any police station that has this unit, Philo, there it is more or less a stress reliever. because the couples come and you hear them explaining to the police officer. Then there you see the man saying, "Kanzijemu sati afande nkulaga omukazi ono kye yankola." The entire back is almost gone. Ano yansala akambe, she did this. And you're like, what? Oh, because these men are going through such in their homes. But a kabale becomes rare because, according to reports, it is leading with 58% cases reported both at police and in court in Uganda. Now, I think that requires special attention, because if other areas have 30, 12, but for you, you're leading with 58% of all cases reported in this country on domestic violence, both in police statistics and even court statistics. So that shows really there's a big problem here. But we also must look critically, what is the nature of work here? What are some of the factors that escalate domestic violence? One, men, most of the times, it comes to an element of poverty and scarcity of resources.
Yes.
That when men can't provide, naturally, many of them lose it. Because if they are coming to you asking for this, asking for that, asking for the other thing, and you can't provide, how you handle that situation matters so much. Because I told you one of the areas I go to is the Family and Child Protection Unit, and you will hear these stories. Children are seated home. Now this man, we went to him, I simply asked for this, I simply asked for, so there's an element of poverty because you need to provide, you're not providing. Then there is an issue of alcoholism. Go to Kabale. Today, there are many men that wake up, and what they're waking up to is moving in trading centers. They find some cheap liquor they take.
Yes.
They go back home. Now with the physique of some of our sisters in that area, you're not going to come back staggering. You didn't provide. And you think you may not get a beating. But also, lack of enough sensitization on how we can resolve conflicts.
Yes. Especially when there are domestic conflicts, because you have two parties involved. You know, you have the father and you have the mother. And some of these issues could be a little bit far too complicated for both of them because of several issues, really. There are many issues at hand, and rather many factors at hand that may you know, destabilize the way someone thinks about certain domestic issues. And indeed, you find that as opposed to, you know, coming to a mutual understanding, there is a violence that is going to erupt, whether from the wife's side or from the husband's side. So you find that there is quite a lot of abuse going on. And which is, by the way, not really cut out to only physical abuse. It could even be mental abuse from both parties towards the other party.
Because when you look at Kabale as a region, you're going to find that of late, many men are shunning work. Because this was an area where we knew them into agriculture, we knew them so much in communal farming. What do I mean? Where I feel if I had 5 acres, today we would, and you have 5 and another person, today we would come and dig your piece of land. Then tomorrow we go, we dig another person's piece of land. So that is communal agriculture, where they would dig as a community, but for a specific person, then move on and dig for another person. Today, you find that a number of men are now looking at alternatives, which may not necessarily be sustainable, like agriculture. That's why they will wake up. I don't know where you got this thing of chasing for a certain deal because you believe someone's going to sell some property.
Yes.
Then, you know
the money is going to come easy.
The money is going to come easily, then you get commission. Every trading center, and there are many mushrooming trading centers where I think authorities now should come up with bylaws. We need bylaws on certain things in our society. Otherwise, this is why these cases are increasing. Today, Uganda is developing, and there are a number of areas where if you took 5 years to visit that place, when you go back, you're going to find a mushrooming trading center somehow. And guess what is at this trading center? Funny bars made from makeshift swat, pool table, betting, what else? A border stage where even one who doesn't have a motorcycle can come and stand and they talk.
They get into some
the
sort of
entire
conversation.
Day, the whole day they talk. So men have moved away from their position because of such things. Philo, if someone gets addicted to sports betting, even if they have 10,000, they think they're going to get 1 million. If they first inject 5,000, then they get 7,000, then they'll think they're getting more. Then he goes home with empty pockets. But he left early. These pool tables you find around that are not guided at any point, at any time of day, yet even some are spending money. You know, the bars that are not regulated. One time I had Honorable Saro Pendi who wanted to come up with a law to regulate alcohol consumption.
Yes.
For heaven's sake.
And I mean, it was met with a lot of
objection.
A lot of objection
For
from very
heaven's
many
sake,
people. Yes.
How can you tell me that there is a bar open at 8? Let's be honest. It's now 7:14. But you go to a place, people slept there. You go to a place, people are drinking at 7. And what are we talking about? These are people in rural areas where they even have land to cultivate. This parish development model, government, whatever, as long as we don't have laws governing, no wonder we're ranked, is it first in Africa in terms of alcohol consumption?
Yes, on the entire continent we're taking on the #1 position.
If there is anything that is destroying family and escalating domestic violence in our country, first is alcohol. In rural areas, you go to an entire village, you've gone with an NGO, you want a sensitization workshop, and almost 10%, almost 9 out of every 10 men that come are drunk. And what time is it? 2. 9 out of 10 are drunk. People, their thinking has been compromised. The women are not. So, and we know with our sisters there, they are well built. So when you're going to go to such a person, you're drunk, you've not facilitated for your children, you may necessitate a beating and get the beating.
Okay.
No wonder.
And again, I still condemn it because I do believe that there is nobody deserves to be treated. Because again, there are certain ways that some of these issues could be handled better, as opposed to resorting to violence from both men and women. But also, Robert, there is one thing I want us to talk about when it comes to violence. You mentioned something about men not feeling free or not feeling okay with coming out and talking about it. And even when we are talking about domestic violence against women, we are talking about it and we forget that there are men who are also very serious victims. And maybe it's also important for us to get a clear understanding. Why is it so hard for society to talk about violence against men? Yes, especially in a domestic setting. Why do we see very few men come out to talk about it, to address this issue, especially if they are like victims, to come out and, you know, expose themselves to the entire world and show that, you know what, we are also human beings and we are being abused domestically. We could retaliate if we wanted, but we're not doing that. What makes it hard? Why have we created a certain kind of demarcation when it comes to conversations about domestic violence between men and women? The men we hardly talk about. What is it? And I want to just hear it from a man's perspective.
Well, it is by upbringing, by our cultures. Men, naturally, they are more stronger compared to women in terms of might, strength, even if you look at body structure, biologically. So then we go to how culture and religion have all brought us up. I remember when I was a very young boy, I had my cousins that grew up with Vastin and Stella. Now, when a guest would come home, in Uganda, the women kneel. So these were much older than me. I think by about even 10 years, something like that. But when a visitor would come, the girls would kneel and greet the visitor. So whenever I tried to kneel, they would tell me, you know, it was like a taboo. What I'm doing was a taboo. Because I was kneeling to greet a visitor. It was supposed to be my sisters. Now I have a daughter and a son. But you see, they will always emphasize, come kneel and greet, kneel. But my son has to remain standing because he's a boy and he's going to be a man. When I remember still we were young and we are playing and maybe we are all hurt, they will tell me, Omusajja takaba, you're a man, you can't cry, you can't cry. But I'm hurting. My sister is equally hurting, falling off a bike, but for her it is normal to do what? To cry. Look, even when death strikes, a man much as you're hurting, you can't cry and weep. That is for women. So having that background that a man is strong, a man is, you know, you have to be body hardened and you can't come out and say.
So the patriarchal nature of the African culture settings, they believe that
so
only women and children are expected to be vulnerable.
That's why I said earlier, you see our brothers in Kaba, they're open people. For them, they will speak. They don't want to sound what? Chiga will come out and tell you they're open. If he was beaten at night, he will confess. The woman hit me, now come to Central, or go to the Western, or even Northern. How do you say your wife beat you? The entire village to hear that at night you were beaten? Now, that apart, also when the NRM government came into power in 1986, it did a lot of women emancipation. And we had a number of NGOs coming up, the likes of FIDA, so many, coming up to fight for the rights of women. Because by and large, women are more affected by domestic violence. So, even there was negativity created on the side of men. I'm a local council leader on the executive of where I come from. But I want to tell you, most of cases of domestic violence, even when you go to police, the woman in community, police, and I was even telling members of my executive, has already, she's a step already ahead.
Yes.
If she simply said, how is a man going to say I was also beaten? You know? So even society accepted, even, I told you I love the family and child protection unit, but you find that there's already, if there is any case, the woman has already gotten an upper hand over the man because they believe this is the weaker sex. Therefore, somehow it could be you who has offended. And I told you it is only there where you see things that you can't believe. When a man in a suit like me will tell you, officer, to prove that this woman beats me, I wouldn't have done this because I'm a man. Let me say it better in Uganda. Fande kino sandi kikoze kubandi musajja nayo kakasa nti omukazi ankuba oyo alimba yantangula. Then the man will remove the coat, remove the tie, and you see cuttings. Now you find you're like, one time I asked one man, but how come you're walking, you're in pain, you're trying to show that everything is normal? And they said, Indi Musajja, will those officers believe in me?
And when you say that, again, just to add that, men, because of that, I was interacting with some counselors, and this is what he had to say to me. Men will diminish their fear and a report of abuse in always sexually, mentally, physically coming in from their intimate partners, because they know the probability of them being believed is very, very minimal. Whether to the lawyers or to, you know, police or wherever they have to report to. So they shun away from reporting. They would rather stay in there and suffer in silence. But because it's better than you trying so hard to prove yourself. Now, what happens if it's not physical abuse? If there is actually no evidence, there is no proof on your body to show for, the claims you're making. So what happens if it's mental? No one believes that is happening to you as a person, and as a result, yes.
And no wonder you've exposed yourself to community where you're going to be seen like not man enough to confess that you're being tortured, you're being battered, beaten at home, and then you're not getting justice. So why would I bother to step out and let people know what I'm going through, yet actually I'm not going to get justice, I'm not going to be assisted. So I rather suffer silently. And that is why when they explode, that's where we've seen crimes of passion, such as murder.
Well, we have a couple of comments coming in here, and Justin Nabasa says, men are taught that expressing themselves, especially as a victim, is not okay. And definitely these stereotypes have consequences, which is true. They really are. They become psychological because of failure to be able to talk about them to the responsible parties. Thank you, Justin. We do have one here coming in from Mayombo Albert, saying, because we have normalized having conversations about domestic abuse against women, the men feel very neglected and the numbers are a bit minimal in comparison to those that we talk about when we are talking about women, violence against women. Okay, thank you, Mayombo. And Millie is talking about the gender norms have been placed for the women way above those for the men, and sometimes it becomes hard for the men to freely talk about the issues they are going through. Well, continue letting us know. Now that we have established this, Robert, how best can we help, especially to have these numbers? Looking at the Kabale region, this is not a good, it's not a good thing. It's not something that we need to take pride in, but we have to talk about it. What would definitely be the best way to handle some of these issues? Because we need to see the numbers go lower and lower, and luckily we would, I mean, the ultimate goal is to actually have no statistics, because we want to live in a world where there is absolutely no violence at all, especially in family settings. A lot happens in families, but we want to get to a point where we don't have to get into violence. So how best can we help? And from a community level, from an individual level, from government level, what has to be done?
Well, quite a number of things. And first, I'll begin with what is a family? You know, there are things that decades back we used to value and respect. The foundation of everything matters a lot, Philo. In our cultures, all of us, marriage or staying together, because now violence does not only happen to people who are married, even those cohabiting, even girlfriend and her boyfriend, whatever term
even
you want
young
to term.
boys and young girls.
Yeah, we saw the pretty calls and all that.
Yes.
One thing is, we must go back and redefine relationships. I think there are so many relationships that start on a wrong note. Leave alone Kabale. There are so today, the reasons people are beginning to do life together, I love calling it doing life together, when you come together, are so wrong. This young man out of lust, this young woman out of money. There is so much wrong that is bringing people together. And that is why, after one of the other discovering, that I think I was conned. Philo did not look this beautiful. The eyeballs I saw, the what were done. The physical structure, the structure I saw, it was silicone, was what? The man, the vehicle I saw was not his. The house was not his. His earning, he gave me a false impression. That is one. Now, to be genuine, there is so much wrong that brings people together. But also, we must look at how do we prepare people to be together. You know, our great fathers and our mothers, much as they weren't very educated, but they would value the process of preparing someone to get married or to go into a relationship. A woman would be prepared, a man also, though not much. So because coming together, they will tell her. I remember someone was saying they would even tell a woman that put water in your mouth if this and this happens, so that you don't speak to reply to this person. No, they will tell a man that even if you're going back home, at least if you've bought meat, send a young kid to deliver it, so that in case there's anything that the lady has not done properly, knows that now you're on your way, you're coming back. You get it? And she'll do it. You know, if you get home, don't just enter your house. Go whistle around, call the name of your dog. You know, there's so much preparation for people who are getting together. But also, we must ensure that men are well prepared and reclaim their positions as heads of families. Today we have so many useless male creatures. Very many. And with the empowerment of women, a problem has come. We have so many heads of families that you look at and you pity this young girl. I'm a born-again Christian. And I see so many weddings, because for us a wedding is something very easy. Church will fundraise for you. But I see very many potential, well-empowered young girls going with men that you just see that much cannot be, despite intervention of Jesus Christ alone. And the people are jubilating. The brother doesn't work. He wakes up, he comes to church to pray. The sister is a medical doctor, Philo. How are these things going to be? The brother, P7 dropout, this one has a master's. Now, in that family already, the position of the man is not there. So, men being responsible, they have neglected their duties. So, if we do not address that, where Philo wakes up to come to work and Robert stays in bed sleeping, then Philo comes with whatever they have collected, and Robert, they prepare, they eat because of love. Then later children come in. So we must go, and I love what Church of Uganda is doing under the current Archbishop, that is focusing more on raising the boy child to reclaim his position in family, and family, I don't mean only married, even those cohabiting, to reclaim their position. Men have moved away from their position. What is happening in Kabale? Women tilt the land, men wake up and go and drink, go in betting, go to pool tables, go to whatever. So when you slide away, definitely the woman will see you not useful. Insults will come in, and for you believe you're a man because you have gadgets of a man. I'm the man in this house. Then a beating will automatically come. So finally, the issue of poverty. How do we ensure that we reduce the levels of poverty in our communities? I'm happy with issues like the parish development model, that these will form circles, and they're empowered. When there is money in a home, believe you me, these are facts. There is joy in a home and happiness. I know many men, when they come...
There is a certain level of sanity.
When I have money.
There is a certain level of sanity.
Of sanity.
Maybe, yes.
If I have made my deals, I have money on me, I've sold my dogs, the clients have come, I've made money. You can't even step on me and I'm not offended.
Yes, because, well, you know, there is a whole fallback position or another source of joy. To make you forget your problems
children, even
for
if it sits on you, does what, Dad, I want this. You simply tell your mother, she knows where to get the money. You get it. So, a man who doesn't have money, who is poverty stricken, it's a miracle that they will have a healthy family where there is no domestic violence. And last but not least, we need to have regulations on alcohol in this country. If we don't do that, because the man will make money, sell coffee, sell his harvest, and go drink, and come back with nothing. We need to regulate. If bars open at 5, let's know they open at 5, So by 5, you've done some work, isn't it?
Yes.
Because you won't have anywhere to get this alcohol. But if at this time there is a bar that has opened, we have trans bars in this country. There is a night shift, then there is a day shift.
There is a day shift.
So these are moving out, the waitress and all that, the DJ and everything. Now a new shift is entering. And then clients are
but you see, there is a way the Ugandan ones play it out. During day, they are run as restaurants. Okay, restaurants and you know, eateries and all
for
of that.
villages, it is funny. Mama Naka or Mama whatever, it's at her home. So 24/7.
Yes.
Even if you wake up staggering and you go, she'll just say, and it's cheap. 500, someone can be drunk completely. So what are we talking? Why not have domestic violence? And a drunken man is very weak. They will beat him thorough, and he can't because he's staggering. You've lacked stamina. And the woman will pick whatever is there and hammer you properly. So without regulating alcohol, all these may not be very effective.
Well, the bottom line here is that violence and abuse are not gender specific. For now, in this year, 2023, we know far too well that both men and women can be abused, but also we need to understand that we need to make it very comfortable for the victims to talk about their experiences and to get justice and to ensure that there is a lot that is done to help them recover from all this, whether men or women, but also there is need to stop being the culprits. Men and women, we need to stop fighting each other, and we need to stop abusing people mentally, physically, and even sexually. So at the end of the day, both men and women can be victims, but they can also be culprits. There is need to protect all of them at once. And as a man, I would do encourage you, by the way, there is absolutely nothing that I mean, that is a personal belief, that it doesn't take anything away from you to go and actually report, because in as much as we have lost women, Robert, I'm sure that we can even lose men to this domestic
recently
violence.
we saw in Mukono here a lady that chopped off. We talked about that story.
Oh yes, well, we did. So we have lost men to domestic violence, and there is no reason that should be given for you to murder somebody just because it's a man. So please speak out. It is absolutely okay. It doesn't take away your manhood. It doesn't take away anything from your ego. And again, I do believe there is a need for us to break some of these culture systems and beliefs where we feel like men shouldn't be vulnerable about some of these issues. So we need to also create a space, a safe space for them without judging them, being judgmental about it, and also trying to stigmatize the whole situation. It's already bad as it is. You can only do so much to help out these people. We will leave that discussion for now, but right now we'll get into some of the big stories from the dailies across the region. And starting off with the Daily Nation, expensive loans add to tax pain as Ruto signs a bill. It will be very rough. Kenyans should now brace themselves for new higher loan interest rates in the next 60 days after the Central Bank of Kenya raised the benchmark rate by 1 percentage point. Which way, Raila? A decision time. Azimio leader Raila Odinga is fast running out of options in his quest to tame President William Ruto and his Kenya Kwanza administration. And they're giving you quite a list of the failed attempts: presidential election petition loss, refusal to recognize Ruto presidency, products boycotts. You know, the list goes on and on. Good news for borders in free insurance training plan. And senators vote to serve Sia's Oduoy in the impeachment. Lawmakers ganging up to deal Azimio rivals to blow as they use their numbers to vote against impeachment. Now, Kenyan trader probed for shipping arms to Shabab. Automated registry of sex offenders out, of course, talking about justice, yes. And in the name of crime, Coast drug lords urges Nasir. So grab yourself the Daily Nation, and also getting onto the Citizen. How governments approved budget will affect you. Taking you through some of the things that will be changing, especially for the ordinary Tanzanian citizen. And Rostam Farm in $100 million Zambia power deal. New agriculture insurance consortium in the pipeline. And CCM to monitor Ali Karume for 3 months of criticism. And still looking at more of the budget that we are looking at for Tanzania, 44.4 trillion. Okay, this is the size in shillings of the government's 2023-2024 budget, which will be coming into effect on July 1st. So 44.4 trillion Tanzanian shillings, and Uganda, we are looking at about 52.7 trillion Ugandan shillings. So clearly you can see that things are about to get tougher by the minute. Well,
I don't know if you convert Kenyan money
into Tanzanian shillings, we'll do our simple math and we'll be giving the feedback. Yes.
If they don't have a bigger budget.
Yes. Well, we'll leave that at that. We're going for a break. When we return, we'll be giving you the traffic updates, what to expect if you are already on the roads or if you're planning to get into the road. Good morning.
Actually, Zono Industrial is one of the presidential initiatives which is brought here in Acholi land to skill our youth. The skilling is free of charge. What you really need, you have to be within the age of 18 to 35. They don't need any requirements apart from being willing. You have to be willing, and a youth who is willing to get the skills. The courses we have started with only 4. That is tailoring, hairdressing, carpentry, and welding. First intake, we registered 212, we admitted, 212 students from 10 administrative units of Acholi. These students, they recruited them from different districts within the Acholi sub-region. If we continue with this cooperation, many beneficiaries will pass through us, and they will go with enough skills and on skills which will change them and later bring them into money economy. We shall really fight poverty in that way.
Pick of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by
Gatawa with MTN Momo Advance. Momo Advance tops up your Momo to complete your transactions. Dial *165*5*3# to apply. MTN Momo Advance is always available when you need it.
Uganda is rich in natural resources and hard-working people. But to turn these resources into real progress and development, we need to invest in our infrastructure, education, and healthcare. That's where taxes come in. When we pay our taxes, we are investing in our country's future. We are supporting the schools that educate our children, the hospitals that care for our families, and the roads and bridges that connect our communities. And when businesses pay their taxes, they are contributing to the growth and development of Uganda's economy. They are helping to build a stronger, more prosperous nation for us all. So when you pay your taxes, you are investing in the future of Uganda and supporting the progress and development of our nation. Uganda is because of you.
Uganda Revenue Authority. Developing Uganda together. Road traffic crashes is one of the leading causes of death among young people aged 5 and 29 years. In 2022, Uganda registered 21,473 crashes, out of which 4,534 people died and 15,227 seriously injured. 22 people die every 100 crashes, and on average, we lose 12 people daily. Legacy Road Safety Initiative, in partnership with KCCA, Ministry of Works and Transport, Ministry of Health, Uganda Police Force, Red Cross, Rosaku, Boda Boda Industry Uganda, have organized the second Road Safety Marathon for the crash victims to help create awareness, build cohesion among stakeholders, train first responders at black spots, and support a health facility. The marathon will take place on the 23rd 23rd of July 2023, starting at 7 a.m. from Nakasero Primary School grounds. Book your kids at 25,000 from Legacy Road Safety Initiative offices located at Old Kampala Chicken House, 2nd floor, room 18, or 8th Street, Safeway, Rightway offices, Total Energies, Ovino Mall, Boda Boda Industry Uganda, or visit www.lrs-initiative.org to register. Call 0752 605 479 or 0776 598 817 or 0414 698 675. Proudly powered by Daxi Driving School and Wava Water. Run to save a limb.
This isn't just a girl. She is the future. This is a teacher, a doctor, a community leader, our future president.
This is our family's pride.
This is my friend.
This is the future of our nation.
She is the future of Uganda, and the policies I enact today will protect her from teenage pregnancy.
She is the hope of our community, and I will talk to others about how we must protect her.
She is our family's pride, and I will protect her from child marriage and talk to her about the dangers of teenage pregnancy. We each have a role to play in empowering our teenage girls to protect them from child marriage and pregnancy, because when we empower them, we empower our nation. Protect the girl, save the nation.
Their support meant so much to me. I stayed focused and was protected from child marriage and teenage pregnancy. I will support other girls against child marriage and teenage pregnancy.
Take action. Report any case of defilement or child marriage to the police or call Sawuti 116.
Attention coffee farmers, traders and processors. Uganda Coffee Development Authority has important advice for a successful harvest season. Pick only red farm cherries to achieve good weight and high quality coffee. For natural processing, dry coffee on tarpaulin, concrete or clothing to avoid mold growth. Avoid heaping coffee on the floor. Store coffee in jute bags and in ventilated rooms on wooden pallets. For more information on good harvest practices, visit your nearest extension worker or Uganda Coffee Development Authority offices.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
You're still watching Good Morning Uganda on UBC TV, bringing you the updates concerning traffic this morning, looking at areas coming in from Seta all the way to Namamve, cutting through to Boyogere, and Chireka all the way till town. And taking it straight from Seta this morning, it's quite a very busy one, especially for the roads in here. Already traffic building around Seta town as you continue all the way through Chiwanga, which already we are viewing traffic spots here, and of course building up alongside that road. And as you continue to Namamve, of course you'll be expecting traffic blocks here and there, clearly being shown by these orange build-ups and orange stretches rather on this road. Continuing to Boyogere, definitely you'll be expecting some heavy traffic. Remember, this is a Kampala Jinja Expressway, so we have quite a number of users, especially motorists and also heavy loaded cars. So do expect some traffic here as you are crossing through to Chireka. And of course, moving in around Chobe Road here, which brings in cars also from this other side, you'll be expecting traffic around this junction. And moving around all the way to make it to Chireka around Nambole National Stadium, quite a free route as we speak of it right now, but any minute now you could be having traffic building up here all around we're seeing just a few traffic build-ups here and there, but for the most part of it, it should be very easy for you to navigate. And as you're approaching Chireka, do expect some heavy traffic, especially around the cities, Chireka town rather. Cars coming in from Kamuli Road trying to join the main road, cars coming in from Namugongo over here, causing quite some chaotic situation here. So do expect a very heavy traffic, and it could be a little bit hard for you to navigate here, and I would do encourage you to be very patient, especially in areas like that. Continuing all the way through, making it to Banda, quite another very busy road here. At the stage we do have cars connecting in from Banda Close, trying to join the main road here, and no wonder you're seeing quite a long and endless red stretch, obviously indicating the traffic at this very specific point. So you need to mentally get ready for it. And as you're continuing through Nakawa, it should be a very smooth ride. The green line is quite dominant, showing you how the roads are a bit empty and the cars are quite in motion. However, as you are approaching Nakawa Junction, you'll be expecting traffic build-ups, clearly shown by these stretches. Cars coming in from Tinda Road and joining the main road, cars coming in from Nakawa Ginger Road, quite a very busy junction, I must say. So you are expected to be, again, very cautious while there. And as you're continuing through Lugogo via the Kampala Ginger Highway, do expect the traffic here to come in. We do have cars also joining in from Newport Bay Road, joining the main road, which is Kampala Ginger again. So quite a very busy area here, and of course accounting for the traffic. And continuing through all the way as you're headed towards Centenary Park, Kampala Ginger High was still very busy. The cars joining in from different parts of the road, Wampel Avenue, Old Port Bay Road, Access Road, Yusuf Lule Road, very busy area. This one, I must say. So please exercise lots of caution and patience as you're continuing all the way through. And as you're headed towards Kampala Road, do expect some traffic batches here and there. Cars convening in and joining in from different parts of the road, from Speak Road, from William Street, all of these causing a bit of chaos on the road. So please, I can say if you're trying to make it all the way from Seta till Kampala, you will be coming across some traffic in several areas here and there. Well, please ensure that you are a careful road user for the safety of you and very many other road users, cyclists, and also pedestrians. We'll leave it at that. Good morning, Uganda Agenda will be coming in right after.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Wakato, this is a quick call. I'm almost out of minutes. Now, the center.
Why rush through such important conversations? Airtel Uganda has made it possible for you to call across all networks in Uganda at the best rates with the new Bona voice bundles. Stay connected anytime, anywhere, with minutes valid for calls on all networks. Dial *100*1#. Select voice bundles and select Bona voice bundles today.
Airtel, a reason to imagine.
In fulfillment of the constitutional obligation, which mandates the state to make reasonable provision for the welfare and maintenance of the aged, the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development is implementing the Social Assistance Programme for Empowerment, SAGE, designed to provide income security and reduce poverty among older persons. Over 300,000 older persons in 146 districts in Uganda have benefited from the grants. The income security has made life better for eligible older persons aged 80 years and above, registered with the National Identification Registration Authority, NIRA.
Lili ya tukobera amatuza. Najo kutala kubao ati mwegandise. Akasende kasoka nkafuna. Nagwa mungushi. Enkoko edaba dukulu bange. Erufu yo kabiri tuyafuna erufu yo kubiri. Nata mungushi akabizi ngangulya ki. Kiegulya ngulya ebedukulu bange. Ndikone government enambi mubuke buno empe kuyiki akasente nganimwe mungushi ekyokulya ekyabedukulu bange. Tikati ebintu byenfuna okuyambibwa mbe nsaba gavumenti obusente bwetugwa butono bungi ngani kusaba ebe etugemeku etwongezeku tikati nze nebizibu nga ebyobulwaire omuntu amaiso gatibulira omugongo buliuki guluma era ebigero birima bume era nesaawa eyo nfuna nkozesa ki edaga ekirugavu mpakirekola nga nsaba gavumenti ebe nga etungewo kasente. Ndikusima gavumenti ebisolo buyalambala nalowooza ati benjo okutwala kambafune kuyoki obuyambi nga tukozeki titumusabye kyaba kirowoozo kye kyamukulu waife atutwala.
This is a message from Expanding Social Protection, ESP, implementing the program under the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. ESP, better life chances for all.
Pick of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by
Get away with MTN Momo Advance. Momo Advance tops up your Momo to complete your transactions. Dial *165*5*3# to apply. MTN Momo Advance is always available when you need it.
So when you pay your taxes, you are investing in the future of Uganda.
Uganda Revenue Authority. Developing Uganda.
Chebagala ogamba nti sente URA ezetukunganyamu zezimala okukola ebintu bino byonna enguudo amasomero n'ebintu ebirala.
Mzee aba basajja basoza sente nyingi nnyo olaba nti boda boda banzako miliyoni aga
miliyoni ana
zo wa boda
olowooza atunda okutunza emmere wa restaurant
nyabo sigo wa restaurant mukyere nyama bisi bwolwa miliyoni nkaaga
eki kati akyaliza alina kawushimbe n'akabaala
mzee kati yake gofudde mufi
kiki
leka nawe lekerawo okulimba URA era omusolo gwe bayita presumptive tax oba guyita omusolo ogwafe oba business obutono obuyingiza okuva ku miliyoni 10 paka ku 15 obutasukkawo omwaka
kati olonze banategeera batinyingiza yange
ati oba olina okukuuma ebitabo byonna ebikwata ku bizinensi yo ate ekyangu kwe kugenda gwe kennyini n'obensooka n'obatwalira ebitabo bino ku ofiisi zaabwe eza URA ezikuli okumpi awo ne babeera nga bagerekera omusolo omutuufu
ekitegeeza bali olina kwetega beetege
kyekyo bwe beetege bweteze osirike era bwe ate bakulimba nnyo kubanga ate mu ababoda mulina sasula emitwalo ejja omwaka
obwedde oyogera ebigambo nga babikunyumiza n'otulimba abantu abakulu wammataka kutunyonnyole.
URA ekujjukiza okusasula omusolo gwo ogwa presumptive tax. Guno gwe musolo ogusasulwa abo abaddukanya bizinesi entono era gusinziira ku nnyingiza ya bizinesi yo nga gusasulwa omulundi gumu buli mwaka gw'ebyensimbi. Genda mu ssimu yo onyige kamunyenye 285 kadaala oba sasula ng'okozesa mobile money oba mu bank oba kozesa ba mobile agents. Uganda Revenue Authority, tukulaakulanyize wamu Uganda.
Iwakato
This is a quick call. I'm almost out of minutes. Now, so the center.
Why rush through such important conversations? Airtel Uganda has made it possible for you to call across all networks in Uganda at the best rates with the newborn voice bundles. Stay connected anytime, anywhere, with minutes valid for calls on all networks. Dial *100*1#. Select voice bundles and select Bona voice bundles today.
Airtel, a reason to imagine.
Attention coffee farmers, traders and processors. Uganda Coffee Development Authority has important advice for a successful harvest season. Pick only red farm cherries to achieve good weight and high quality coffee. For natural processing, dry coffee on tarpaulin, concrete or clothing to avoid mold growth. Avoid heaping coffee on the floor. Store coffee in jute bags and in ventilated rooms on wooden pallets. For more information on good harvest practices, visit your nearest extension worker or Uganda Coffee Development Authority offices.
These days, our homes are no longer just the places we live. It's where we attend meetings, go to class, keep each other safe, and entertain ourselves. To do this smoothly, you need a reliable internet connection. Buy the MTN WakaNet router, which connects up to 32 devices and gets a free 40 GB data bundle at only 149,000 shillings. Or buy the MTN WakaNet MiFi at only 75,000 shillings and enjoy a free 15 GB bundle to stream, study, work, and play on the go. Visit any MTN service center to buy the MTN WakaNet router or MiFi and enjoy the internet that does amazing things.
Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Thank you for staying with us here on Good Morning Uganda, coming to you live from UBC. It is exactly 8 a.m. on the 27th day of June. The year is 2023, Tuesday. My name is Philomena Mastiko. And well, we are back at it to have one wonderful discussion that I look forward to, and I am pretty much excited and sure that you would also love to engage with us on this discussion, especially as a worker here in Uganda. Well, this morning, our discussion is going to be rotating around very key things when it comes to workers here in Uganda. And if you've heard of a word or a statement called trade unions, I don't know whether it's a statement or a name, but we will be getting into the details of that. If you've heard of these two words before, do they carry any meaning to you? What do they signify to you as a Ugandan employee or as a Ugandan worker? Do they hold water for you? Well, this morning, we'll be talking about trade union legal framework and relevance in the development of an economy like ours here in Uganda. And anything to do with trade unions, we're going to be discussing this morning. And when I say we, I mean myself and my wonderful guests this morning. Well, I am very lucky and pleased to introduce to you Moses Maoko, the Treasurer General of the National Organization of Trade Unions, that is NOTU. Thank you so much for joining us. Moses, very, very happy to have you here. And of course, we'll be having Hassan Luabai Mudiba, who is the General Secretary of Uganda Local Government Workers Union, joining me. Thank you so much for making time, sir.
Yes, thank you very much.
Well, I would do encourage you to let us know, give us your questions, anything concerning the trade union legal framework here in Uganda, and any submission, how you feel this, the significance of the trade unions here in Uganda. Continue using our WhatsApp social media platform 0709 602 592. Go ahead and use Twitter as well. The hashtag is UBCGMU. Let's talk the trade union legal framework here in Uganda and its contribution, the whys, the hows, the whats, the whens and whos are going to be answered this morning. But as we get into all of this, when I speak of a trade union, what does it exactly mean? And here I would really love for Moses to take us through. I mean, we could be throwing around words that we assume everybody understands. Yes, I'm talking about trade unions. Someone else is asking, what is that? What are we talking about? Let's start from there, Moses.
Thank you so much, Philo. A very good morning to everybody, especially our fellow workers and employees in the different organizations. I wish to take occasion to first and foremost introduce myself again. Mauku Richard Moses is my name. I am the Treasurer General of NOTU, but also the General Secretary of Uganda Hotels, Food, Tourism, Supermarkets, and Allied Workers Union. The term trade unions, it refers, or let me say in other terms, it is workers' unions. That is the general name. But in some countries, or most countries, we are referred to as trade unions. In Uganda, the national constitution refers to workers' unions as trade unions. The labor laws refer to trade unions as labor unions. So all those three phrases mean the same thing, workers' organization. And workers' unions, trade unions, or labor unions are workers' organizations that are voluntary, representative, democratic, continuous, and they are formed, managed, administered by workers themselves for purposes of advancing, advocating, promoting, protecting, and defending the workers' social and economic interests at workplace, and all that is done through collective bargaining.
Okay, and with that, I would really progress to how do the trade unions come into existence?
Oh yeah, trade unions come into existence through a legal process. Historically, trade unions started way back in the 18th century, between 1873 and 1876. That is when trade unions started in the world. And trade unions came about as a result of, you know, in the olden days, we used not to have workers or employers. We had masters and servants. We had slaves and
slave masters.
Slave masters. There was also very little need for one to work. There was no work for pay. There was nothing called salary. You would just work as a slave or as a servant. Because those were the times when people didn't have much economic needs. You would get treated using herbs. There was no need to go to school that time. There was no need to buy food. Everything could be provided in your own setting. So the need for work was also equally not there. So somehow, for those people who initiated development and they started manufacturing certain things, they needed people to help them.
Yes.
And there was no mechanism of how you get somebody to work for you until you just force this person or convince. And that is how even this question of slavery came. Because some people had initiated and wanted to produce. But the workforce was not there. There was no need that could drive somebody to go and say, I want to work for the other person. Everybody had what she wanted to live or survive. So trade unions start, the coming into force of trade unions was a struggle. Because as people continued to work, time came that they were being tortured, even during work. Especially when you look at the situation where you are using a slave from Africa and you are a European, language barrier. So the only way to supervise was by whip. You get?
Yes.
he cannot talk to you and you understand. So if he wants to remind you that do it faster, he whips you.
You're supposed to interpret that whipping as some sort of
accelerate speed
yes.
in what you are doing.
Yes.
So it was so bad that people were producing, and now people were beginning to sell, had begun to sell what the workers produce. But they are not paid for what they do. But the other person earns from what they actually produce. And they now started talking to themselves. How best can we attend to our issues in different areas and places? So that is how trade unions begin, by workers identifying that, one, they play a pivotal role in the production processes for the people who are doing business. But they are not paid equitably to in commensurance with what they produce. So they began talks. How do we speak together? And somehow they began sharing and started by boycotts, and also started asking certain things. When you whip one, the rest stop and say, why are you whipping him?
Yes.
All of them stop. So you would have to whip everybody. And that one even slows what?
The production. Yes.
So they began now to attend to workers' issues. And it became a very tough struggle that many workers were detained, many workers were even killed, until when it reached the peak and they selected a day, the 1st May day, when many of these workers were killed one time in some different places, and we now recognize that as the International Labour Day, in commemoration of the very many people who struggled to start trade unions.
Yes.
And now trade unions are the organizations that speak for the voiceless workers the world over. And ILO was started in 1919. That is when they made the first constitution under UN for the workers' organizations to operate. And the workers' organizations operate in a tripartite arrangement where you have the workers' organizations, the employers' organizations, and governments. And that is what takes people to ILO conferences each year, to go and discuss and initiate standards or legislation for workers. It all emanates from the International Labour Organization.
Yes.
One may even wonder, why do we also have to review laws in Uganda or in our countries after every 5 years? It is because ILO, which initiates the international standards and therefore the international laws, they change every 1 year. They are reviewed every 1 year. So it is presumed that after 5 years, all countries that are member states with the United Nations and ILO also have to look at components of their laws that need to be reviewed to make them consistent with the requirements of the international standards, as long as you remain a member state with the ILO.
All right. Thank you so much, Moses. Now that we've had that introduction, I want us to zero down to Uganda. And Hassan, this is where I'd love to hear from you. Looking at the workers here in Uganda, and in comparison to some of the key elements that Moses has been talking about, a standard working environment, standard salaries, standard treatment to ensure that there is a production, equitable production amongst employees and employers. Would you give an overview of how we are standing here as Ugandan employees? And, well, we'll focus on the employees, the employers we can always talk about later. Yeah. Would you give an overview of that specific field here in Uganda? Okay. How are we doing as employees?
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Mastiko. And I thank my brother Moses for having given a good introduction and the background. And it is true that we need to understand and appreciate whether the trade unions are necessary or not. And my take on that is that a trade union is nothing but a framework which defines a relationship between the employer and the employee in a regulated working environment. As Moses said, the working environment before the industrial revolution was not a regulated working environment. But after the industrial revolution, we start getting a regulated working environment. But also we need to define, when we are talking about a worker, which worker are we meaning? Because there are people who are self-motivated, who are working, those are not regulated. We are talking about a worker specifically who sell his or her labor, either physically or mentally, in exchange for pay. There are also workers who offer their labor in exchange for pay, but in the form of profit or dividends. But here we are going to concentrate on those who earn a living through salary. And this regulated environment is so complicated that you may need time to understand and appreciate it if you are to benefit or to be active or to be visible in that environment, or else you can be swept under carpet and you are exploited to the marrow. And to understand this one, you must do it yourself, Madam Mastiko. Nobody is going to do it for you.
I have to fight my own wars. Yes, for me.
Yeah, you need to be vigilant. You need to understand. You need to look for knowledge. You need to do it. Like I can give you the working environment I'm thinking about. Here you cannot be called a worker of UBC if you have not been appointed. What does appointment mean? How does somebody procure appointment? There is a process, a procedure, and a legal framework. Then we talk of job description, like if you are appointed, which type of job are you going to do it, how are you going to do it, what type of working tools are you going to use for work, and where are you going to sleep, or at what time are you reporting, at what time are you leaving, are you entitled to an identity card, are you entitled to promotion, are you entitled to leave, maternity leave, sick leave, so that is why I'm talking of regulated environment. Then when it comes to pay, you are entitled to salary, but which type of salary are you talking about? Is it nominal salary? Nominal salary is, but before that one, a salary is supposed to be useful from the day of payment to the next day of payment.
Yes.
That if I'm paid today, I will be able to use that money until the next payday.
Until the next 27th of July.
Yeah. So that one is called a living wage or adequate wage. But if I get a salary which will be over within 2 days, then that is not a living wage.
Isn't that what most Ugandans
I don't know, but so that is an issue which may require interrogation and engagement between workers and their respective employers and the policymakers. Then there is also an element of training. What type of training? Can I, like for myself, I'm trained formally. I have a degree. But can that degree help me to work in UBC TV? It doesn't. So I may need a specific training to enable me to undertake the type of job I'm doing. So how do we manage that one? So also we can talk about the training. So trade union basically is that framework which helps workers to engage with the employers, but also it helps those who may be voiceless to speak through their representatives. And in Uganda, we are, because there is what we call a global village. Uganda is part of the global village. And the matters of labor are regulated through International Labour Organization, ILO. And there are several conventions that we are ratified by Uganda and which were domesticated in Uganda in municipal laws. I can give you an example, like ILO Convention 144. That is a convention which compels government, employer, and workers to relate and consult each other. And any decision that is going to affect a worker directly or indirectly must be done under that framework, which we call a tripartite, and it was domesticated in our local laws here. So if If Uganda does that one, and it is domesticated, and it is put in the employment policy and the labor unions laws and so on, then it is upon the workers to seek for knowledge about that thing and implement it and benefit. Actually, if you are to do a legal audit here, you may think that the government of Uganda did everything. Yeah, you may think it like that, because for them they have done everything. I can tell you that you look at the constitution. The constitution,
they've done everything legally expected from them.
For them they have done, and the only part they have not done it to sensitize their workers about their right, and they left that one to us to see whether we can be curious and look for knowledge that will enable us to engage the government and the employer effectively. Yes.
Okay. And I need to understand, now that you've talked about that, Moses, what are some of the labor laws that would have to put into place to fully and efficiently protect the employees, especially like here in Uganda?
Thank you, Sister Phil. Maybe right from where it emanates from. ILO, which is the organization responsible for labor in the whole world, as we speak now, we have 190 conventions. Those are the standards that relate or affect an employer, an employee, and government in the family. 190. We also have a set of what they called the 8 core conventions. When these conventions are passed, they are passed by the member states in that tripartite setting, employers, workers, and governments. That's it every year, to review and discuss and pass them. Some of these standards are either in form of conventions, treaties, covenants, recommendations, and other forms of protocols. They are supposed to be made local. That is what a process they call domestication. These international laws are made local here by putting them in our own context, in the national constitution and the relevant laws. Now, for our case, we have about 9 to 10 labor laws that domesticate the other international standards.
Yes.
But it starts from the national constitution. There are several provisions in the national constitution that provide for liberties and rights, obligations and rights of employers, governments, and workers. Particularly, there are 2 main and key components or articles in the national constitution. Article 29 and Article 40 of the national constitution provide for the main liberties and or rights for the workers. Those articles give rise to about 9 different laws. We have the Employment Act, which has just been amended, and it is before His Excellency the President for assentment. We have the Workmen's Compensation Act. We have the Occupational Safety and Health Act. We have the Arbitration and Dispute Settlement Act.
Yes.
We have the National Social Security Act. We have the, remind me others, there are about 9. Then there is this one for public service, public service negotiation machinery. There are different labor laws. The problem is that I think 90% of, over 80% of the Ugandan workers don't know these laws, and therefore the laws do not apply to these workers, maybe including yourself.
We don't make use of them, and yet they are actually in existence. Yes.
And like that is what
like
Hassan
about
was.
2 or 3 of those. The rest, I absolutely have no idea.
And even those that you know about are not applicable to you in most of the cases, especially where you are not a union member. What they call an organized worker is that worker that subscribes to one of the unions registered in a country. If you are not a registered worker, sometimes people have complained here. My brother here is a board member of the NSSF.
Yes.
And other people are saying, but for us we have PhDs, why should it not be us? That is not your money. You don't appear in the legal framework as an organized worker. But that type of representation is a preserve to those who are organized. That is what the international standards refer to as workers. For you who are in, you can just work, you know.
but you
here you have
to,
categories.
yes.
Some people work with UBC, others work for UBC, others work in UBC. Those are different forms of how you relate with UBC. There are all those categories.
Yes.
And you even don't know. If I asked you whether in English whether you work for
or yes,
you may not exactly tell the truth.
Yes.
Because some people have contracts, others have appointment letters, others have nothing, but they work here.
And they're recognized as employees.
Yes. So all these things do happen. And the laws regulate all these situations, but we don't know. So it is important and apparent that we as employees need to get this information and knowledge and then apply it. And the only and best way to do it is to join one of the unions.
Yes.
Because the unions are the custodians of implementation of these laws, together with the employers on the other side and the government.
So whereas an individual employee doesn't understand some of these laws, the union does that for the employee?
Definitely, because the unions have the duty to organize the employees into the unions, educate them, and give them the information that it requires for you to know. And also, in addition, under Section 24(1)(d) of the Labour Unions Act, it provides that the employer shall be bound to recognize a trade union to which any of his or her employees subscribe for purposes of collective bargaining. So trade unions do what they call collective bargaining. Collective bargaining entails the discussions between the trade union and the employer to determine the general terms and conditions of employment for the staff. And that agreement is a legitimate agreement which becomes part of the law under Section 37 of the Arbitration Act. So those are very pertinent instruments at workplace, which people do not enjoy just because they have not subscribed to unions.
Well, we're talking about trade unions in Uganda and looking at the legal framework and their relevance, especially to economic development. As an employee, as a Ugandan worker, do you know the laws that actually protect you while you're trying to execute your duties and responsibilities in all these different workplaces we have? And also, did you know that we actually have trade unions in Uganda? Do you know what they do? Do you know what is expected of them? Do you know what entitlements you get when you are part of them? All of that we are discussing. Go ahead, let us know. Continue asking the questions. I already have a couple of them. I can see them coming through our WhatsApp platform 0709602592. Well, before we even go any further, Hassan, I would love for you to take us through some of the issues and the challenges, especially faced by the trade unions here in Uganda and coming in from employees. We've had on several occasions, very many people complaining about how the trade unions are not actually protecting them. In fact, I've been seeing some of the comments coming in. I'll be sharing with you the sentiments that are being shared here on WhatsApp. But what do you have to say for yourselves, as you as one of the leaders in these, for example, now the local government workers union, do you feel like you're not doing enough to protect this, or these are allegations being made by employees? Or maybe it's a problem of the workers who don't understand the relevance of these work unions. What would you have to say from your perspective?
Yeah. I think there is also a weakness among the Ugandans, where people think of pointing to others than pointed to themselves.
In fact, if I may cut you short, I'm just going to read this. This gentleman saying trade unions in Uganda seem to be meaningless. Look at the salary disparities, the worst in the world, and they haven't really done some recommendable work on it. Authorities, we are looking at different professionals fighting every now and then because of all these salary discrepancies. So is there any way they can actually defend themselves?
Yeah, but first of all, we need the union have done something, and a very big work. The fact that unions are recognized, registered, and recognized, that framework is enough contribution to emancipate or to liberate workers. Like, and I can give you an example. There is this, is it political organization is act. If you read that act, it says all other organizations to assemble must require permission from the police or something like that, except trade unions. What does that one mean? Does it mean that that provision in the law just came out of the blue and it was put in the law without a serious engagement? Trade unions are represented in most of these statutory institutions, including parliament. Workers have 5 members of parliament representing workers. Do you think that, don't you think that as organizations, including employers, wanted to be represented in parliament? How come that they are not represented there? It is because of the engagement trade union gave, and we were accepted. You look at in public service, where I think UBC follows. You take time and read the laws. Do you think that those laws that have been amended and allowed even workers to associate in union, has it come out of the blue? Recently, we signed a recognition agreement with the government, where government of the Republic of Uganda accepted that unions must operate in public service. Yet public service is seen as an institution of government to implement its program. But we insisted until they succumbed and accepted, and even we went to the extent of signing a collective bargaining agreement where the least paid worker in the government is supposed to get 1,780,000 U8. It is documented. Actually, next time, if you invite me, I can come with some of this.
The documentation, yes.
To show that there is a serious recognition between the union and the government. Where, if I say, like now, there is a public service negotiating council, where Uganda Local Government Workers Union is represented by 2 members. Do you mean that these other organizations don't want to sit in that council? But they cannot. Yeah, so I think what we needed to do is to first of all, to accept, like myself, I was working in the state council. But I sat on my table and saw that there was unfairness, even before the trade union approached me. It must come from yourself as a person, and you must take a decision that you need to do something to put things right. Yeah, so when the trade union came to sensitize us in the state council, I was among the first to accept the concept. But if some people think, actually, the majority of people believe in miracles, that maybe a miracle will come and my salary is increased, or I get this and that. But the fact that workers needed to stand up, we need to belong to a critical mass in order to influence public policy in our favor. There is nowhere in the whole world where public policy can do you favor if you don't belong to a critical mass.
Okay. I want to add something.
Yes.
One is that union representation. I want to believe and accept criticism. It is a normal practice.
It has to come through.
But what I want to explain to you, my fellow workers and Ugandans, is one is that representation by the union, like I said, I put it in our description as being a representative organization. One is that unions represent workers at different levels. At policy level, unions are doing a great job. We have representation at all levels of government, all of them. From now, the district, we have district councillors, 2. Each district, it did not arise out of the blue. We have representation on national boards by the organized workers, that is the union leaders, including parliament. So at policy level, we are doing a great job. We also now have to get back to our unions nationally. Each union represents a sector, a trade. That is why we are referred to as trade unions.
Trade unions, yes.
So we are registered according to different business trades or sectors of the economy. So at your own level, you are going to represent workers. Nationally, you are going to represent these workers in the workplace at the factory level. And there are complaints that arise at all these different levels. So it is important for us to be mindful. What is the level of the discontent?
Yes.
You know, it is a struggle. The government, the employer, and the worker have different interests, but they all draw from the same basket. So who has more power to utilize the money that is made by a company?
Yes.
Let us take an example of any company, either Kakira or any company operating to do business. The employer puts together resources to establish a company to make profit. The employee, no, the government first registers this company for purposes of collecting tax from the very company.
Yes.
The employee goes to work in that company to also get a salary. All these things are secured from the very one piece that the company is producing and selling. Each of the three persons have a share on the sale.
The government, the company, and the employee.
Exactly. The government picks its VAT. The government sells by force the water and the electricity to you.
Yes,
they don't
because
even allow
you need
you
it.
to do your own water. They will say, no, no, you can't drill water here.
Yes.
You must have a very expensive license to use your own water.
Yes.
You must buy theirs. So they also have an interest in establishing a company. So who has power over that money? The owner has more power. The government uses its authority. You either pay or I disconnect, or I close the company. You get. So the employee has less power. And that is how unions come in.
Yes.
A union which is not paid by the other employer can now come and negotiate on how do we share. What is the share of the employee on that money that is being made there? And you know, all the three parties need one another. There is nowhere a company can operate without government registering it. There is no way a company can operate without an employer establishing it.
Yes.
But again, it can never kickstart without an employee doing the work. So all these parties need one another. And so representation, we can satisfy ourselves at different levels.
At different levels.
And given that the theories of economics theory, every person forgets what has satisfied him at different levels. If your need is to buy a car, the moment you have a car, that need is covered.
Yes.
Now the next
different needs
another type of car.
Yes.
And you will work tirelessly to get, if you started with a VTs, you are looking at either Benz. Until you get it, you forget that you had the need for a car. So you begin again complaining as if you don't have. So those things happen. Our duty is, are we trying to make sure that we represent this employee or this worker? And are we negotiating for this worker? That is very paramount.
Okay.
However, the complaints shall continue to be there, and that is why the unions exist anyway. If there are no complaints, there is then no need for unions to operate.
Yes.
So when they come, we address them.
Okay.
The other thing I wanted to conclude with, that we need to connect. We are here speaking for National Organization of Trade Unions. National Organization of Trade Unions is the umbrella organization where the national unions are affiliated.
They are affiliated to
We affiliate to NOTU as national unions. So NOTU is the federation. We are the national unions. So the NOTU is the one that operates at that higher level. When government wants to communicate to unions, most times they will go through the umbrella organization. So we are 34 unions that are affiliated to National Organization of Trade Unions in Uganda in the different sectors.
Okay.
So sometimes some blemish may go to NOTU, other blemish may go to the individual or particular union.
Yes. And most people will actually throw it to Noto because this is the one
Yes,
they know.
they supervise the others.
Yes.
So.
Well, as of course we're coming to the end of this discussion, there is one thing I would love for us to talk about: the current pensions bill in 2023 in Parliament. Now, what's good and bad about this? Because we've had quite a number of conversations, and I do also understand that there are very many others that are currently under review. Yep. Yes, and if you could take us briefly through some of those and why they are under review, what would have made you feel like these things need to, these laws need to be reviewed? What are the reasons behind these reviews?
Can I start then throw it back at
well, Hassan could okay. Yeah, okay. But let's start with you, Hassan. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Mastiko. There is actually a bill, the Public Service Pension Fund Bill.
Yes, 2023, yes.
Which is in Parliament, but I think it was referred to a certain committee. I have not followed it up. Over it, sorry. But the government is sponsoring that bill, and they are saying that the defects, they want to address defects within the public service pension. They are saying that one of the defects, they are saying that there is unsustainability. It is not sustainable. There is not affordable. The people who have retired are not paid in time, they delay in payment, and the government is not able to afford paying that the amount has become so big, and they feel that this fund should be contributory, whereby the members should contribute a percentage and the government contribute, so that it can be sustainable, like as it is in the private sector. So for us as workers, we looked at that bill and we agree with the defects as cited, and the intention is over many, but we don't agree with the prescription of the remedies. Because we feel that the prescription is okay, but the medicine they are prescribing to treat the disease is
not the right one.
Yeah, it is not the right one. And we feel that more work needed to be done. Like I can tell you, like now if they said that they want an independent fund for public service, as you may recognize, the number of public servants are reducing year after year. So I wonder how sustainability will come. They are reducing in terms of reforms, but also IT. IT is reducing work.
Is replacing, yes.
Yeah. You find that
physical.
And jobs which used to be done by 20 people can be done by one man or woman. So now, if you go independent as a public service pension fund, how sustainable will that fund be? Then too, there is an element of low pay. We are talking of that our workers in the local government, which we are conversant with. The least paid is paid 200,000 or 180, and the highest is less than 3 million. Now, even if that person is made to contribute, what significance will that contribution cause in that area? Then there is also an issue of who is sponsoring the bill. We feel that it should not be public service to sponsor, because most of the message that have been happening in this fund pension, it is being done under the stewardship of Ministry of Public Service, with due respect. But also we feel that public service is an employer, and yet this fund should be sponsored by a ministry responsible for social security. Public service is not responsible for social security, it is responsible for management of public servants and processing their payrolls, appointment, and so on. And I don't see an expert in public service on the matters of social security. Yeah, so
because that is not their jurisdiction anyway.
No,
yes.
it is not. So we feel that that bill should be sponsored by a ministry responsible for social security, which has the mandate and the competence to manage it properly. Then there is also something which the bill did not talk about, something to do with corruption. Yeah, we have witnessed so many cases through the press where a lot of money meant to go for people's pension is swindled. This week I was surprised. I read a rural district where like 2 people swindled 5 billion for pension. Now, and it is being done under public service. So I feel that, but if you read the bill, you don't see what provisions are they putting in place to make sure that such vices will not continue. Now, when you look at the governance structures as provided in that bill, you find that it is the Ministry of Public Service, the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of War, constituting the body of governors. Yet for us as workers, we feel that if we are to get pension fund, it should be independent from government.
Yes.
It should operate independently from government. But if you made a board which is constituted by people from finance, public service, or what, and
these are still government representatives, yes.
And even they have no competence or track record in investment. Like now, if you ask any of those ministries who has ever undertaken a successful investment undertaking, nobody. Now, if they have not, now how are they going to promise us that they are going to help in addressing those? So that bill is. Then another issue we are read that. This is not a matter for government, it is a matter for workers.
Yes.
Now government is unfair to sit in a small corner, come up with a bill without even consulting major stakeholders. We are stakeholders in that issue, but workers were not consulted, the union were not consulted.
I mean, government has been accused of being a bit tone deaf when it comes to the issues that are really affecting the local employee or local worker.
Yeah.
So probably could be coming from that perspective.
Yeah, then the last point is where there is fusion between the board, executive director, then what? All of them are done by one person, the minister, and we feel that it shouldn't. Yeah, there should be. Otherwise, the idea is good, and we need to.
But there's certain areas that still need to be addressed. Well, as we're coming to the end of this, I would really want to hear from you, Moses. What do you have to say about this, especially when it comes to the current laws that are under review concerning the employees or workers?
Thank you, Philo. One of the laws that was successful was the NSSF Act. It was a struggle. It took a lot of time for that act to be amended. And there were so many struggles at different levels.
Very many struggles.
Some laws were even crafted and passed in between while we are struggling about the NSSF law. But at least finally, it was passed and in the best interest of the employees or the members. Despite all odds, at least we have a law that is responsive to the needs of the members. That allowed mid-term access. It was an outcry. I remember one time when I was still a young boy, when I just started work in the 90s, ILO sponsored a research. And that research recommended one of the things that we could keep our monies with NSSF, but in dollar currency, for it not to lose value. The other critical issue was mid-term access, which we now secured. The other recommendation was that NSSF should operate a bank, because NSSF funds banks.
Yes. Among
they have
projects,
shares in different banking institutions. Why don't you do your own bank so that the members access loans at favorable rates? We lost out on that one as well. But we shall continue pushing and having hope that at one point in time we shall secure these things. So NSSF is done. We have a new law and we're happy with it in its format as of now. We have been also grappling with the Employment Act, which has been passed recently, last month or this month, into law. And it is before the president for assentment. The president has not assented. We are happy with many of the provisions that we proposed in this law that included domestic workers' rights in the Employment Act because it was absent, which now emphasized the casual workers' rights and parameters, and also migrant workers' rights, and also breastfeeding mothers' time to be allowed time with pay to breastfeed, and many other things that we achieved in that law, though it also still has some pitfalls, especially in the current law. We have had labor officers with powers to arbitrate, conciliate, and also make decisions. The current bill is scrapping off these powers and taking it all into court. Workers,
so there is no arbitration at all.
So the arbitration is losing meaning in the new law, which is very dangerous. And I wouldn't, if I had the powers, I would advise the president not to assent the law, which removes powers from the labor officers to arbitrate and sending everything to court. How many workers have the capacity to manage court processes? There are very few. So many laws will die, will not be listened to, because these workers don't have the capacity. They don't know the procedures of how you even access court.
Yes.
The labor court sits in Kampala, but we have workers in Kidepo, Kanungu. When will they access the industrial court that we have in Kampala? So somehow that was a pitfall and a serious one. I wouldn't have loved to have a law which removes powers of conciliation, powers of arbitration from the labor officers, which they have been doing. And they could even finalize many of these cases without necessarily going to courts of law. And then the other laws, a number of labor laws are for review. We are now beginning to look at the Labor Unions Act also to be reviewed. And there are salient things. When a law is under implementation, the implementation process must inform the parties what gaps do exist. So over the years, these laws were passed 2006. Today we are 2023.
Yes.
It's a number of years. We have already known where the gaps do exist in these laws. And like I told you, laws are supposed to be reviewed almost after every 5 years because the international standards are reviewed every year. So there are things that do change that affect the laws that you have, the other side. So we have looked at all those gaps, and we believe that now we are trying to close the gaps. The only unfortunate bit is what I've been explaining on the Employment Act. And now that we are going to also start reviewing the Pensions Bill and also the Labor Unions Act, two are coming at the same time. We only need to be a little bit sharp to ensure that the right thing is done through the processes. That is where some other colleagues were saying that the unions are not doing all the best.
Yes, we are not seeing the work
sometimes they don't
doing.
know what happens. At the policy level, they may not necessarily know. So when we get opportunity to come and discuss things on the big network, it gives opportunity to the other people to understand that, oh, kumbe, they are doing this as well. So we are at policy level trying to ensure that we review the laws in the best interest of our current and existing problems as workers.
All right. Well, we could go on and on and on talking about what is happening and what is actually being done to ensure that there is a lot of fairness being served to workers from their employees, or rather from their employers all over the country. But we will leave it at that. Thank you so much, Moses Mauku, Treasurer General of NOTU, and Hassan Loabai, the General Secretary for Uganda Local Government Workers Union. Thank you for the education, and I cannot wait for you to come back here and do some more education and answer to the criticism that is coming in from the workers.
We are always ready to do that.
Well, Ruben Mpima Chividango is coming in with the sports updates. Much later on, you'll be having Good Morning Uganda Extra. Have a wonderful and productive Tuesday ahead. I am Philomena Mastiko. Good Morning Uganda.
Irisiti ojja kumpa irisiti tompa birala irisiti ojja kumpa irisiti tompa birala mpa irisiti yange.
That's right. Insist on getting your e-receipt. It's your ticket to fantastic prizes, including motorbikes, laptops, fridges, and a fully paid 6-day safari for 2 in Uganda. Take a picture of your e-receipt, upload it to the URA website or mobile app, and you could be the lucky winner. The more receipts you upload, the higher your chances of winning. Terms and conditions apply. More details on our social media channels.
Uganda Revenue Authority. Developing Uganda together.
Juko. Yo. Wachiko. Check the shopping, man. What's your secret?
Haven't you heard of the parish development model PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, it is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a portrait project, and now things are moving.
Juko. I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. What you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that. The parish development model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better.
PDM,
my parish, my development, my life.